Hello and welcome to this recording as a guide to the EDUQAS English Language Paper 1, Section A, Question 4. Today's question is going to focus on Question 4, which loosely speaking will ask you to talk about tension, atmosphere or a character and how indeed that character changes or develops through an extract. Why does the examiner mention create or develop? Well, this hints they want you to look at how a text develops or exaggerates a theme or idea. How does this theme or idea, or indeed character, evolve the more you read? What does this question look like on the exam paper? Well, you can see it gives you an extract to study. It gives you a certain number of lines to look at. It has the number 4, and then asks you about what the writer is developing or creating from the extract. And then it's got a bullet point that makes clear what you're being assessed for, and it's worth 10 marks in total. Here is an example then from one of the recent exam papers. Read lines 66 to 89. What are Frances' thoughts and feelings in these lines? How does the writer show her thoughts and feelings? And you must refer to language used in the text to support your answer using relevant subject terminology where appropriate. 10 marks. The parts in red are the things we'd identify then as the exam board telling us exactly what they want us to write. First off, we've got a line count from 66 to 89. Any quotes from outside those lines would not count towards your grade. We've got a reference here to thoughts and feelings. In this case, those phrases are used twice, which suggests then that they want you to find lots of Frances' thoughts and feelings and identify how her thoughts and feelings change in the extract itself. You can see the question's worth 10 marks, which gives you an idea of roughly how many quotes you should use, and it references subject terminology, which means words like nouns, verbs, adjectives that you happen to find as you read the extract. As a general rule, you want to write your answers in short paragraphs, the beginning, middle and end of the extract with around 3 quotes in each. Key advice to pass this section? Well, be careful to make sure you say what's changed in each section of the extract. Don't just repeat the same answers because you feel the character or situation hasn't really changed. It will have done. Okay, the character will have changed. They will be thinking about different things. The situation will have changed in the extract. It's up to you to find that information as you read. Here's an example question then. How does the writer show the build-up of tension in these lines? This extract is taken from Susan Hill's The Woman in Black, and as you can see, it is describing then ruins as the main character, walks towards these ruins. We should be reading this through and looking then for how tension is built up or how scary this extract is. We're looking then probably for an increase in tension the more we read. Now in this case, the extract's already in paragraphs, which makes it quite simple to work out there's going to be changes in place or time or character as we read it through. Well, first off, we notice it's set in ruins, which immediately evokes a dark, foreboding atmosphere. We might think this is something from a gothic horror novel or something similar. We're then told that it's in an ancient chapel, again reminding us this is a dark and eerie place that's probably silent. This creates then suspense in this early paragraph. As the extract develops, we can see a reference then to noises this character hears. We've got loudly beating wings. This adds to the tension as these noises seem to unnerve the character and make them scared of what might happen next. Once more, the extract develops this still further by referencing words like satanic-looking thing. The word satanic reminds us of the devil, as if the writer is trying to make us think that this is an evil, sinister place that is scary and is likely to cause the character's death or demise. By the end of the extract, though, we've got words like midsummer, breezes, wildflowers and bloomed, all suggesting then that by the end of the extract, the atmosphere or tension has lightened. It's much less scary by the end than at the start. Words like bloomed suggest the place is coming to life rather than dying. In this extract then, we've got the increase in tension through paragraphs 1 to 3, but then a decrease in tension at the end there, as everything seems to be all right and full of life once more. This is the exam criteria then you're judged on this question, with the key ideas there in red. You'll notice once again subject terminology is being mentioned there, relevant subject terminology, precise subject terminology. But more interesting, what makes this question different from the others is that you've got to reference the organisation of the events. You can't score any more than 4 marks if you don't mention the way the text is organised. From 5 marks up to 10 marks, the examiner repeatedly asks for explanation of the organisation and the effect of that organisation. Organisation means how the text is structured, how it appears on the page and what order those events are actually in. If you can explain how something increases or decreases, then that's how you get the 5 to 10 marks on this particular question. Please pause the video perhaps to study this mark criteria in more detail. We're going to look at 3 examples now, which are all based on the question you saw earlier regarding Francis's thoughts and feelings. Here's the extract itself then, which we'll read through before looking at 3 candidate responses. The late sun was surprisingly strong, so they decided to take the children down to the beach. Francis unbuckled Lorna's sandals and kicked off her own shoes and walked to the water's edge. She looked behind her and saw Lorna building a pile of pebbles while Jonathan made the baby comfortable in his pushchair. She felt a rush of affection but walked on, looking out to sea and aware of her eyes making adjustments to the distance as if they'd forgotten how to focus on the long view. She felt free. After some while, she narrowed her eyes to make out a little group around the pushchair. Of course, it was satisfying and delightful to see Jonathan lying with the baby on his stomach while their daughter skipped around him. But she'd not needed babies to make her feel the delight of life. She was there to start with. She started to walk back, higher up the beach this time, into the shade of the cliffs which held prehistoric snails and traces of dinosaur. I've done it, she thought. I've brought 2 children into the world. She took her time, dawdling with deliberate pleasure. I thought you disappeared out to sea and abandoned us, said Jonathan. Would I do a thing like that, she said, and kissed him lightly. Matthew reached up and tugged her hair. When I saw you over there in the rock pools, you looked just as you used to, said Jonathan, just the same girl. However, I'm not just as I was, said Francis. I'm no longer the same girl. But isn't it mind-boggling, said Jonathan. Isn't it impossible to take in when we were last here? These 2 were thin air, or less. They're so solid now, and I can almost believe there was a time before them. What, said Lorna? What did you say? Francis scooped her up and held her gently in her arms. If we look at the different paragraphs then, we can see that Frances starts off quite reflective, contemplating her life, but by the end she's focused once more on her children as they capture her attention once again. Let's see what was written then in the exam. I've colour-coded the quotes in red and the technical language then, or the subject terminology, in blue. This is candidate 1 who scored 5 out of 10. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quotes used. That might have something to do with the reason. But we've also got links there to organisation. From the beginning, it starts with the extract develops. The extract draws to a conclusion. This person is clearly tracking the text and looking at the order the events are coming in and trying their best to explain those. So why did it only get 5 out of 10? Well, when you look at the explanations of the quotes, you can see there is some understanding of the effect of word or sentence level effects, but difficult wording make it unclear if the meaning is fully understood. You've got to phrase your explanations as clearly as you can, focusing on the quote that you've chosen. There is evidence of basic structural comment being made, which is why it got the 5, if not potentially better. And once again, though, the way quotes are explained is a little bit vague, so it's unsure to the examiner whether they actually understood the quotes that are being given or the quotes they've chosen. This then got a mark out of 5 out of 10. Candidate 2 got 3 out of 10. A single word cannot be analysed. They've tried to analyse the word free just from the word free. Analysis means zooming in on something. You can't zoom in on a quote that's only 1 word long. The comment here only loosely links to the quote. rush of appreciation. This shows that although she was upset, she loves Jonathan and is happy with her life. That's really vague. I would have focused much more on the word rush, as if this is sudden, as if she's being overwhelmed by her appreciation and love for her family. And at the end there, yet again, we've got this kind of vague comment on the quote, deliberate pleasure, saying she's just very happy. Pleasure shows she's pleased with what she's done and is appreciating it. Well, yes, she has. This candidate has begun to analyse here, but this is out of context. We don't know what she's very happy about, and it says pleased with what she's done. Well, what exactly has she done? You need to link to the context of the whole extract. What is the whole extract about? What does this tell us about this exact character, rather than just making guesses based on the quotes you've chosen? And lastly, candidate 3. Much longer this one, of course. We can see technical language in blue, or subject terminology in blue, and a range of quotes there in red. The quotes have been clearly explained, which fits the rest of the extract. She felt free implies Frances' mind was finally at rest and any bad thoughts escaped out of her mind. She felt a feeling she'd not felt for a long time, which had made her feeling of freedom appear more severe. This clearly shows the examiner that this candidate really understood the extract and what Frances was going through. We've got technical language here that almost feels accidental. It is a case of they just happen to notice that the quotes they've chosen use short sentences or simple sentences, and that's more than enough to tick the technical language or subject terminology box for the exam board. They don't want you to force the technical language. They want you to find it naturally. If you happen to come across repetition, then comment on it. If you happen to notice alliteration, comment on it. Don't try and actively hunt for the terminology, otherwise you might find that you're using up too much time in the exam. The text is clearly tracked, looked just as she used to. Frances would feel warmed that they still have the level of love that they used to, and forces her to respect that life does not always allow times like that. You can see there, they do understand the extract and how the extract develops, even if the wording of this is a little insecure. So 7 out of 10 for this response. Every school gets sent examiner feedback from each test that's done, and this is our examiner feedback from the last question 4 that was submitted last year. Candidates look to draw comparisons in this question, either with other characters or what has happened previously, with clear sentence structures to show this change or comparison. So in this case, we look at Frances and think, what was she like before in the rest of the whole extract you're given? That is the whole piece of paper you're reading in the text. And then think, well, how does this particular number of lines show something different about her? The best responses track changes in the character or situation in the text, whilst ensuring the explanations are based on the evidence given in the context of the whole article. So the candidates would need to look at the whole thing, work out how Frances feels at the beginning, middle and end, but then when they zoom in on the actual evidence, they need to make sure the explanations actually link to the evidence given. And weaker responses ignore the rest of the passage or extract and purely target basic quotes in isolation, and often draw inaccurate or vague conclusions as a result. This is where you're just randomly choosing quotes without really thinking where those quotes fit in with the passage as a whole. My feedback then, from my experience of marking question 4. By now, timings can often be rushed, with people having to cut question 4 short because they've run out of time, which means easy mistakes quickly get made. You should clearly divide the extract into three to ensure you can see the blocks of meaning, the start, the middle, and the end. That means it will be a lot easier to work out how the extract changes or develops as you read. Sentence starters should reflect changes in the character or situation. Sentences like, at first we see, however as the passage develops, and by the extract's conclusion, all suggest tracking of the text and tracking of organisation. It is also easy to forget that the examiner wants to see some analysis on a word or punctuation level. This is what makes this a tricky question. You must be aware of what is happening in the whole thing, but be able to zoom in on the writer's clever word use as well. You don't have to do this for every quote, just once or twice would be more than enough. Based on this advice then, this is how a response to question 4 might well look. I start with an overview of the text. Okay, take into account the whole passage. I then zoom in to the start of the extract using at least 3 quotes. I've kept those quotes really short to save my time in writing it out, so each one's around about 4 words long, but not as short as 1 word. And at the end there, you can see I'm beginning to analyse. So I've taken the quote satisfying and delightful and then zoomed in on the word delightful to comment in more depth. I've then begun the next paragraph with as the extract develops to show that I'm ticking off the organisation box for the examiner. I'm showing Francis's thoughts and feelings have changed by the middle of the extract itself. Now you're going to see on the screen 2 practice questions so you can put into practice some of the skills and techniques that I've advised you during this video. Here is exam practice 1 and exam practice 2 from a previous exam paper. Thank you very much then for listening to this video or watching this video based around paper 1, section A, question 4. Good luck in the exam and all the best for the future. Bye-bye then.